Hello everyone, Caroline here. Today I'm sharing the cards that I created with the Love from Lizi November kit. For my first card, I decided to do a background, and I'm using Dilutions ink in different blue tones, and I usually start with plain water and then spritz on those different inks. And my idea was to create kind of like a dark blue midnight lake, enchanted lake scene for one of the big swans that came in the kit. So as you can see, I'm just spraying this on and just manipulating the paper with moving the paper back and forth. And here I'm just drying it, and I think it worked out nicely. And then at the bottom I wanted to create kind of like a wavy theme, so I'm using a stencil, and the first part I just spray water, let it sit for a second, since the Dilutions ink are water reactive, and just picking up the water through the stencil, and it created some waves. Now I wanted to add a little bit more texture to the background, so I decided to use some iridescent glaze from Vicky Booten and just put it in the bottom half of the through the stencil, so I had the waves coming out even more. When this dries, it's going to be a little bit more transparent. Now for the front of the card, I decided to go with some vellum, and I used a stamp like with flowery background stamp, and that stamp is from an earlier kit this year from Love from Lizi. I folded it on the corner so I can just wrap it around the card and glued it on with some liquid glue. And for this one, I used one of the cards that I just cut out completely, everything, the crown and everything, and even there was kind of like a minty colored outline. I cut this away too. And then I added some of the feathers in the behind the swan, and I used another stamp from the stamp set that was included in the kit. And for final touch, for embellishment, I used some stickles on the swan to make it more glittery, and that's the finished card. For my second card, I decided to use excuse me, I decided to use the other side of the swan card, and for my background I used one of the rectangle dies that I had on stash, and for embellishing this card I used a die that actually came with the new Spellbinders kit, actually for the November kit, and also Sizzix dies for little greenery. So the background, the background paper comes from the October kit. This was one of the pattern papers, and I just with my magic micas, I just make a little give it a little frame around the edge, and then I just stamped one of the stamps from the stamp set and embossed it in silver. And then I thought, since the stamp says may love be in your life, I'm just gonna put some glittery hearts in the background, and I used the heart stencil, I think that's the one from Paige Evans, and also some glitter paste from Gina K. Now placing the swan, and again put some feathers behind it, And then I just build the flowers, the poinsettias, and they are really a great size for this card, so I decided to just go with them, even though they're not with a kit. They didn't come with the kit, but you know, you can use whatever you have on stash. When you have a little flower that will fit, that would work perfectly for this. I have to say, I was a little short on flowers. I thought like only swans is hard because you need something to embellish the swan, and I think flowers is always good. So here I'm just putting the final touches, sticking in the little leaves that I had, and then I added also the little snowflakes that came with the kit, the little wooden snowflakes. And I think this the flowers and also the greenery bring this card really to life. And then for the final touch, again I use my stickles, and I think that's the crystal one. And then I use some glossy accent for the beak of the swan and the eye area. And that's the finished card. Okay, and here comes the third card. And this is a square card, and it's a pretty quick and easy card. I just used one of the pattern papers, this light pink one, and then I used the other pattern paper that had the swan inside, and I cut that out and actually lifted this a little bit off the paper with foam tape. And then I added one of the shaker element that came with the kit. I cut off the top and then just glued it into that circle, and embellished the sides again with some greenery that I die cut it. And I used this glittery paper, or the glitter cards that came in the kit for that. I thought that looks nice. Now fiddling a little here to get it all stuck, and I'm going to take some more glue to really make that permanent. And then I also lifted that little Christmas wishes up with foam tape, and here I'm gluing the the silvery leaves in place. And for the final touch, I attached one of the little white bows that came with the kit there. And that's here I'm again. I cannot do any card without stickles right now. The Christmas and everything. And here we go. Here's that third card. Okay, card 4. Here I have to say I went a little bit overboard, but it still works, I think. I used this Swanee pattern paper, and I made like a layered card front with that I think pearlescent cardstock, and then I used a piece of vellum on top, and then I added that one decoupage sheet that I put together and added that on top. And I could have left the card like this, but I don't know why. I kept going and going, and so there was this Merry Christmas, and I wanted to attach it on a button, but then I was like, I don't know, the swan's looking out down the side, it's just so weird looking. So I started and putting on more of those poinsettia that I had cut out, and this time I used like a Bordeaux color. I thought that's a nice contrast. And again, I'm using little greenery in this, and this is from the mint colored pearlescent cardstock, and then I added those little poinsettias on the side. So now I'm adding more stickles to the swan, and then the glossy accent to the on top of the sentiment. Yeah, so this is a little I went a little overboard on this one, but I still like it, so it's fine. Card 5. Okay, for this one I used that embossing folder that came with the kit, and I also used one of the specialty papers that I had as an add-on. I cut out some snowflakes with the snowflake die that was included, and in white glitter and in this silver glitter paper. Then I just added the sentiment, and here you see me moving take away that 1A that was on that stem. That was like an A, 1A too much, so I fixed that, and I embossed that with steel, the color steel. Now for the snowflakes, I thought they were a little too big for what I wanted them, so I cut off those little round circles, and then I decided to use my mica magics to just add some colors to some of the blue colors to some of the snowflakes. And those micas, you cannot really see this on the camera, but they have a slightly shimmer to them, so it's not matte, it's shiny. Then I'll just add that to the background. Attach this to the specialty paper, and then I'm gonna attach this to the card front, and then I added first I added like a little distress ink around that sentiment, and the color was Stormy Sky. I thought that fits nicely. Then I popped it up on some foam tape on the bottom of the card, and then I used some big glue dots to assemble the snowflakes on top of the card. So I made this kind of like an arrangement. First the white glitter, and then the silver glitter on top. And I think it worked out nicely that I cut off these circles, otherwise it would have been so overwhelming. So I thought it looks nice, and then I embellished it with the Nuvo drops that came in the kit. And I used some silver glitter stickles for the inside of those snowflakes that were on the embossing folder. And that's the card. Alright, card 6. Now for card 6, I decided to make this kind of a wedding card. I think that swans always go for wedding. I think it's even more wedding than Christmas. So I cut out two of those two swans out of the die that came in the kit, and I created a background with a stamp that has like a tree range on it, and I just wanted to get it a little bit more texture. Then I embossed it with a clear embossing powder. And I'm heating that looked already nice, I thought, but then I also added a little bit of distress ink. That's the color Princess. to give it a more vintagey look. And then I added some bling embossing powder to the background. And I just smeared this on with my hands, my fingers. I didn't use any extra embossing. I just smeared that like over, and then I just heated this, and that gave it kind of like a glittery backgroundy random pattern. Now I made a shaker card out of this frame that I cut out from one of the pattern papers. I think it was a pattern paper? I think so. Yeah, I cut out that frame and decided to make it a shaker card, or make it a shaker element. And actually used a piece of acetate that I had in my stock for that, not one of the one that came with the kit. And then I used a little bit of the snow that was included, and some of the sequin mix, and built up the shaker. And usually I forget the powder tool, but in this case I did it. Yeah, then I put that together, and I thought that looks really, really nice. So, and I cut off that back part so it wouldn't be visible. Now I'm building the card. So and added that shake element with the flüssig glue, liquid glue. Then I put those two swans, arrange those two swans on top of the shaker. And again, I'm using this poinsettia that I really fell in love with. I just love this little, I think it's just the perfect size. And I cut it out different rose colors, a silver one, and then I cut out, used a dark green as contrast. And then I added the little sentiment that came with the kit, just with some glue, tape glue, partially behind those flowers. Yeah, there. Then I popped up those swans with foam tape. And for embellishment, I used some of the sequins, and also gave those two swans eyes with silver stickles, and then used some crystal stickles for the flower inside of the flowers. And that's the finished card. This is a very big card, it's almost 6 inches. For card 7, card 7. Here I decided to create a watercolor background, and I used a mix of Pixie Magic Cosmic Shimmer Powder. This one is Midnight Sky. This is very dark, almost black. And I just dripped the water like on top of the powder and let it disperse. And then I just used my brush and added some regular watercolor from my palette. And the thinking behind this was I wanted to create like a almost like a cosmic, universal sky. Yeah, and here you can see me and adding more color. And here I'm adding a Spectrum sparkle ink. So this ink is literally the same ink that is in those Spectrum sparkle pens, glitter pens. but it's just a pure ink. I also added some red magenta in it, and then I just let it dry. I dried it with my heat gun, and then I added with a stencil, with a snowflake stencil that I have for my stash, and added some snowflakes. And since the background was not really completely dry yet, it took off on the blue. The blue came through, and I really liked that because I didn't want the white to stand out too much. So this way it was kind of like merged with the image, with the background image. Now this is again a 5x7 card, and you see those little hangers came also from the Spellbinders kit. So I cut out those 3 ornaments from the pattern paper, and to make them a little bit thicker, I glued them on a regular cardstock, and then I cut them out and assembled them with this little hanger. And then I added my art glitter glue that I'm always using, and drew of those little feathers and around the ornament. And then I added, I used my finger to smooth it out a little bit, so it's not like bulky, too bulky. And then I used the glitter that was included in last month's kit, and I just put it on top, sprinkle that on top. And there where the glue is, the glitter gonna stick. So yeah, the only thing you have to wait until it's really dry. After that, I added the 3 bows that I still had left from the kit, those little white bows, and threaded some sparkle twine and fixed them or attached them to the back. And I popped up the ornaments with some foam tape again, so I have a nice dimension. Yeah. Then I popped this up to my 5x7 card, and I added a sentiment using one of the stamps from the stamp set. This one was the Merry Christmas, and embossed it in silver, and then I cut it out and added another border, a silver mirror border around it, and glued this on, and that's the finished card. Now for this card, I have to say I didn't use a lot from the kit. I just wanted to do something else than swans, and I wanted to break out of that color palette a little bit. So I used stuff that I had on my on hand. So some days earlier I cut already a bunch of greenery out with different papers. I was thinking I'm going to use them for a different card, but I decided to use it for this one. And I used the stamp set, used the stamp from the stamp set and added that to a little circle that I cut out. And I used the Love from Lizi embossing powder, I think the plum one that came with the I think the August kit. Yeah, the August kit. It's that plum color. I thought it looked very nice. And I cut out that little doily. Had a little leftover of the vellum that had the little golden bows on it. I think it was from the July kit. I had a little leftover there. And here I'm just, I used an embossing folder, and I actually used some mica to bring out the embossing. And now I'm adding some white ink to give it a frosty look. Then I roughed up the edges, which I love to do. You see that on a lot of my cards. I just love this rough edged look. And here you can see that I'm getting some shine on one of the to the greenery, and the same I do with the flowers. So here I embossed gold. I used the gold glitz embossing powder and embossed a little wooden deer. And now I'm popping up that deer on the bottom. And I'm using some 3D glue for that. Here I'm building another of those poinsettias and adding the greenery. Do my arrangement there. And then I'm popping on those golden stars that came with the kit. Yeah, and then I'm adding just some crystal glaze on those little berries, and that finished the card. And I thought it's a nice, a different color palette. All right, the next card is again a square card, and I used one of the pattern papers, and I cut out one silver vellum piece, and I also cut out one of the I think it was one of the cut up sheets, that circle wreath. And then I'm adding art glitter glue to the swans. I wanted them to look against each other, or to sit against each other, to look at each other. And in order to make them even out, I turned one of them, and then I added the glue and the snow that came with the kit. And then just put it aside to let it dry. And while that's drying, I'm assembling my card. And for this one, I decided to use one of the ribbon. Here, example, the middle. So I popped up one of the sentiments, popped that on top of the wreath, and then popped it on top of the backgrounds to create my own dimensional piece. And here I threading the ribbon that came with the kit through the edge of that die cut, and added a little bow. Yeah, and I'll fiddle with the bow there. And then I'm adding this piece, and I used one of those rhinestone hearts that came with last month's kit. There, and I think that I wanted to make this like a stand-up card. So I'm adding again a little bit more stickles, and here's the finished card. Okay, card 10. Again, I'm going away for a little bit from the swans, and I used wooden grain embossing folder on a craft paper sheet, and then I'm adding just vintage photo on it to bring out the embossing. Then I used the pattern paper that had those trees on it, and I wanted to create a scene where I have kind of a mountain range in the back, and I ripped up the paper, and I used a silver vellum to do that, and I added also the vellum on the front. Now I added again from my stash greenery, and I also added a deer that I have stuff, just for a change, a different animal. And then assembling the card, the background. Cutting off the leftovers there and adding a front part. And this nice thing of the silver and the gold vellum is it gives a little, it has this transparency and still a little shine. And I added also the mica to the deers. First I added distress ink, but it just didn't look right, so I added the mica, and here I'm adding the crystal glaze just to the edge of that ripped paper. And then I used the leftover of the snow that I had and just sprinkled this on top to make it look like almost like snow, like on the edge of the mountains. And I think that really worked. And then I just add some snowflakes in the back, and I added some stickers around this little sentiment that came from the kit. And that's a finished card. Now there's another bonus card that I created since I wanted to use that other decoupage sheet. So I built up the decoupage, and here I'm using this glue, which is like a 3D glue, and it works very well because it's almost like hot glue but cold. I have just trouble with hot glue guns, so this is a very good alternative for me. And I can still, as long as it's wet, you can just move and form it like you want and give it the dimension you want, because it's very hard to do those decoupage sheet with foam tape. So this really helps to get it all even. Now I missed part of the, for some reason, some of the footage got lost, but what I did is I cut out I die cut it out a ruffled circle, and embossed it with an antique blue embossing powder. And then I just popped up the decoupage sheet. I put a feather there, and I also used those little hearts again, the rhinestone hearts, and framed the background paper with the La Femme Lizi peel-offs that came in the kit. And that blue of the embossing powder that I used matches kind of the blue from the peel-offs. So here's the finished card. And here are all the cards again in close up. So I hope this video was I hope you liked this video, and I hope you liked the voiceover. I am not really good, I don't have any experience with voiceover. I usually do my cards and then put music underneath, but I think it's also nice to hear the person's voice, so I thought I'd give it a shot and see how you guys like it. And yeah, let me know, and please excuse if it's not like perfect. So if you have questions, please let me know. I'm really happy to answer any questions you have, so please don't hesitate. I really do those videos for inspiration, and I just think it's nice to share ideas. I do that too. I'm going to other videos and look what the ideas and get my inspiration there, and then try to make it my own. So here's that card that was kind of not the same color scheme. So yeah, So I leave you here, and I hope I see you in my next video. My next video gonna be the Spellbinders kit, the new one. Not the new one, the November one. I haven't even looked at the new one yet. So I didn't even know if it's out yet. I have to check on YouTube. So yeah, that's it. Have a great day. Bye.